Kids do right in front like I do run four-wheelers. Picking green beans out of the garden too.
We're going to go ahead and call the December 9th Planning Commission meeting to order. And the first item of business is determine quorum. We have 5 commissioners present, so we do have a quorum. Review of minutes, Mr. Simileski.
I move that the minutes be approved as submitted.
Do I have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the minutes from November the 18th. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. The ayes have it. Rezoning request. First one is rezoning request number 845, 4 parcels of property, 10900000134, 146, 147, and 056, 44.26 acres total on Givens Road, requesting change from AR zoning agricultural residential to R1 single-family residential district. And we're going to take all 4 in the aggregate, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay, the floor is yours.
All right. This request, as you mentioned, is for 4 parcels located on Givens Road, totaling about 44 acres. The parcels, let me see here, sorry. You can see them here on the map. Used, some of them are vacant or wooded. Others have residential dwellings on them. The intent would be to allow development. So right now it's zoned agricultural residential, which does allow residential development at 1 unit per acre. So the switch to going to R1 allows about 3 units per acre with a minimum lot size of 14,500 square feet. These are located closer to the town of Ridgeville. You can see on the map, let me go back to this one, maybe up here. You can see Ridgeville is kind of outlined in yellow. And then just across from the parcel, slightly to the south, is Campbell Thicket Road. So these are on Givens Road, north of Campbell Thicket, just outside the town of Ridgeville. We've seen other rezonings in this area. I believe the parcel immediately to the south is in the process right now with County Council. A little bit further to the south, there was also another one previously approved this year, also for R1 single-family residential zoning. These parcels are located in a transit-oriented settlement according to the future land use map, as well as low-density rural and traditional neighborhood, both of which will support R1 in this area. The location along Givens Road, also to the proximity to Ridgeville, support R1 single-family residential developments. The area is undergoing studies currently for water, and the developer is aware of that any rezonings, any potential development will be pending that water study, and this may also fall within that area that's studying the downstream analysis for sewer, and of course they're aware that would have to come back in their favor before they could move forward with any type of development. They're also aware of the impact assessment requirement that's now in place that they would have to adhere to prior to development. But again, located in an area, we supported other rezonings in this area. The comprehensive plan does support it. This reason we have stated in the staff report, we recommend approval of the rezoning with the successful completion of their impact analysis prior to 3rd reading.
Okay. Is the applicant or a spokesperson for the 4 properties here? Is there anybody here who would like to speak for or against this rezoning request? Commissioners, any questions?
I just have a procedural question for Kira. If they do let's say the impact analysis is conducted
Yes.
and it shows a deficiency in infrastructure, what happens then?
So there'll be an opportunity either to have the developer address the deficiency either through a potential development agreement, or the county does have the option at that point to not proceed any further with the rezoning if it's decided that it's just not a good plan at this time.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions?
Just one, Mr. Chair. If the planning director would remind us the difference in AR and R1.
Yes, sir. So AR, agricultural residential zoning, allows single-family residential, but it's at a 1 acre minimum lot size. R1 is about 3 units per acre with a 14,500 square foot minimum lot size.
Thank you.
If there are no more questions, I'd entertain a motion to approve contingent upon the impact analysis being complete.
I move to approve.
We have a second.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. The ayes have it. Rezoning request number 849 is going to be 136-07-03-006 and parcel 10, 2.93 acres, Central Avenue, change from commercial light industrial to CG General Commercial District. Ms. Reinertsen.
Yes, sir. This request, probably better shown on this image. So right now, this is Central Avenue down in the bottom, and in the middle is the existing storage facility. This is right over by Alicia Drive, Droz Road, I think. And they've come in and submitted some site plans to planning staff to expand the facility. As you can see on the zoning map, the existing facility is zoned general commercial. The adjacent properties are zoned commercial light industrial. So what would happen is when they combine those parcels, you'd have a split zoned parcel, which is just generally something that we don't support. So one of the comments that they received from us as they were going through their site plan approval process is that they rezone the property prior to abandoning the property lines in order to have comprehensive development, all with one zoning on it. The properties have existing frontage, Central Avenue, Droz Road, Alicia Drive, they're SCDOT maintained. The uses that they're proposing are allowed in either district, but certainly downzoning the property to general commercial brings some of those uses that could potentially be allowed into better conformance with some of the existing uses in the area. So we support the change to a less intense zoning district, and after evaluating the request and analyzing it, we've decided to recommend approval of it.
Okay, talk to me a little bit about the encroachment in your analysis on Alicia Drive.
So they should just be accessing, let me see if I've got here. So right now, they do have frontage on Alicia Drive, which is back here. This is Droz Road down the side, Central Avenue towards the bottom. They shouldn't be accessing encroachment. So staff would really only support an encroachment either coming in from the existing facility, which already has access, or coming in off of Central Avenue, but not coming in off of Droz or Alicia. And that would be addressed during our site plan review as they go through for their facility expansion.
Okay, what kind of threw me off where we say, considering the nature of both Droz Road and Alicia Drive, staff does not support access encroachments onto these roads for the expansion of the storage facility.
Correct, and that's really, we put that in there for informational purposes, so that you know that we're aware of it, but that's something that we would address as we go through the site plan review process with technical review committee, not so much for you all to have to deal with.
Okay. Is the applicant or applicant's rep here? Yes, sir. If you come forward and give us your name and address and answer any questions from the commissioners, please.
Absolutely. My name is Daniel Rinkins, 2303 West Moorhead Street, Charlotte, North Carolina. Thank you all for your time. I did not prepare a presentation. Happy to answer any questions. As mentioned, this is more of a down zoning, so that we can have kind of one uniform future.
Okay. Questions? That was easy. Thank you. Is there anybody here who would like to speak for or against this rezoning request? Hearing none, I'd entertain a motion to approve.
Move to approve.
Okay, do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve rezoning request number 849. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. The ayes have it. Rezoning request number 850, property owner Center Park Homes. This is TMS number 151-11-00-019, 2.44 acres. Request zoning change from R2 Single Family Residential District to R4 Multifamily Residential District. Ms. Reinertsen.
Yes, sir. This one request that's coming before you is actually pull it up. This used to be lots within Teal on the Ashley that were subdivided as part of the subdivision. They actually fronted on Highway 17A. So this proposal looks at what were formerly about 6 lots that would have directly fronted on Highway 17A, shown outlined here, and would allow for development. What they're requesting is multifamily, so R4 zoning. Currently, there are R2 zoning. The R4 zoning allows for townhomes, it allows for condos, it would allow for apartments. When evaluating the request, of course, the existing single-family zoning, under the previous lot configuration, you would have had several, 6 driveways right there on Highway 17A, which when Teal on the Ashley was developed really wasn't an issue, but nowadays we really try to discourage single-family homes from taking direct access off of these major arterials. So I think consolidating and looking for other options is a good idea. During the consideration for either multifamily or R3, because R3 would allow townhouse-style development, there were a couple factors at play. And one is that if you develop under R3 and you're doing townhomes on individually subdivided lots, no impact analysis is required, and no buffers are required. They're considered single-family, so there would be no buffer against the existing single-family. Under multifamily zoning, they could develop as condos or apartments, but I mean, it's really, you're not going to get an apartment complex out here per se. It's only 2.5 acres. You would be required to do an impact analysis because it's considered multifamily, and you also would be required to do a buffer on there. So when we looked at the 2 different options for upzoning to R3 or R4, I think we're a little bit more comfortable with R4. If you develop under that, I think you get some extra protections through the impact analysis as well as the buffers. When we looked at the comprehensive plan designation, this is in an area for medium-density traditional neighborhood, which supports either of those. I don't know, yeah, you can, if I zoom out here and you look at this map, you can see Summerlin Apartments across the street, further up Highway 17A, and then also along Dorchester Road. There are some other apartments planned, and this is considered a major intersection right here at the intersection of Dorchester and Highway 17A. So when we looked at it and analyzed those options, we decided that we would support the request for R4 multifamily at this time.
So you're recommending approval?
Approval, yes, sir.
Okay. Is the applicant or the spokesperson here for this piece? Yes, sir, come forward. Name and address?
Jason Esposito, address is 164 Doubles Point Street in Charleston, South Carolina.
Okay.
Good to see everybody.
Commissioners, questions for the applicant?
Just maybe one question.
Yes, sir.
Is there anything on the, not the 17A side, but the other side, what would you be up against there? Are you up against single-family or?
There's single-family detached homes. We developed and built out the balance of what was left in Teal on the Ashley. And this is some residual property that, like Kira mentioned, they were single-family detached lots that front directly on 17. And we all just collectively thought it would be problematic to, in 1966, when Teal on the Ashley was developed, it made sense to have houses fronting that road. So what we're proposing, what we want to do now is a small, we wouldn't even be developing the full 2.4 acres, I think it is. There's a portion of the property that's wet. There's also, of course, the buffer that we need to maintain with the single-family detached homes behind us. But it would be a small boutique townhome development that we would do as a rental, basically, for some more affordable product in that area. And more, I guess, the main reason being that it would be one curb cut out to 17 rather than a bunch. So we'd have one curb cut into the development, and that would be the only access.
Okay.
Are you looking at underground detention?
You know, we're starting to look at that on some sites. I haven't gone to the point of doing full civil design drawings yet on this one, but it's very possible.
Any other questions?
Just one other question. The R4 allows, is it 13 units to the acre? Is there a certain
That's
number?
correct, 13 units.
Per acre? Okay.
We have it currently laid out. I don't think you have the exhibit. Mark did, but anyways, we have it laid out. It's It's going to land at 16 to 18 is what it's going to actually yield. So,
Yeah, when you include the buffer that you need, yeah.
yeah, well, we've got a buffer going both ways. We've got future expansion of 17A that Mark wanted us to consider or be mindful of, as well as the homes behind us. So it's one of these deals where it's leftover residual acreage. We're just trying to figure out what to do with it. It's a good site. It's a great location. With frontage on 17, it makes sense, I believe, for what we're proposing.
Okay. Any other questions? Thank you. I'd entertain a motion to approve. Rezoning request number 850. Don't everybody speak up at once. Got it? Got a motion to approve. Do we have a second?
I'll make it a second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. The ayes have it. Subdivision applications and requests. Final plats, none. Preliminary plans, Ponds Phase 9. Zoning District PD, Ponds Plan Development, 209 lots, acreage 114. Ms. Reinerson.
Yes, sir. This is the ponds. We're back up towards the front of the ponds here now again in the traditional area of the community. And they're submitting for a preliminary plan for what is called Phase 9 of the ponds, which consists of 209 single-family lots on about 114 acres. You can see this is up towards the front, it's right near, it butts up against the amphitheater, Village Pond, and up by the Village Pond, existing homes, I think about 15 or 16 homes up there. You've seen in the past couple months, staff has brought some concerns to you all with the development agreement and the plan development guidelines, and concerns that they're not being adhered to with respect to the development. This one, again, staff feels doesn't further bring it into compliance, but further exacerbates some of those issues with not adhering to the single-family lot allowances and undermining the ability to meet the mix of residential unit types, limiting the development of a village center, which was always intended to be up towards the entrance of the ponds, and jeopardizing the existing trail system, of which they're required to maintain 10 miles of existing trails. We reviewed this at our technical review committee last month. These comments were provided to the developer. Staff did not conduct a full technical review of the site plan because it was felt that it just couldn't conform to the requirements of the PD because they already exceed the existing lot counts allowed for single-family detached. So the comments provided back to the developer really just had to do with the development agreement and PD guidance requirements. Technical review comments were provided by Water and Sewer, were provided by Public Works. They have not signed off on this. They have not received any revisions back yet, to my knowledge. So again, because of these ongoing concerns and the potential for this to further exacerbate the violation of compliance with the development agreement and the plan development, staff is recommending denial of the preliminary plan.
Okay. Is a representative from the ponds here?
Good afternoon. My name is Cheryl Shawn. I practice law with Nexon Pruitt. My address is 205 King Street, Suite 400, Charleston, South Carolina. My partner, Nicole Scott, will be handing out information for the commission's information and to be added to the record here. KH Pond takes exception with the staff's position on this. As we've addressed this board before, it is the position of KH Ponds that it has indeed and is at this point in compliance with the development agreement and the PD zoning required thereunder. And as to the residential units in place, all of those that are existing at this time have indeed been approved by the county in previous development. Furthermore, we do believe that KH Ponds has demonstrated conformance by the letter of April 18th of this year that is in your packet that was sent by my partner, George Bullwinkle, to Mr. Frampton with the county. That being said, I'm happy to answer any of the questions the commission may have.
Questions?
Just for Ms. Reinerson, is this what we heard recently? The same
No,
preliminary?
sir,
It's
this is a different
preliminary
phase,
plat.
yes, sir.
It's a different preliminary plan.
Correct.
Right. Okay. And staff recommends denial.
Correct.
A question for the chair. If we deny this, how long before the ponds could come back and ask for a preliminary plat? Is there a timeframe? They could come back next month and with a revised preliminary?
There's no time frame.
No
There's a time limitation when you're talking about rezonings, but not for,
Okay, gotcha. Just want to make sure. Thank you.
Any other questions? I'd entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to deny.
Pardon?
I'll make a motion to deny.
Do we have a second? We have a motion and a second. The motion is to deny. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. It is denied. Okay, street name request. Carolina Bay, we have 3. Summers Corner, we've got 21. And in the Ponds, we've got 6. Let's take them all together. A motion to approve the names? Street names?
Just an observation, Mr. Chair, these are better names than last time.
Yeah, they do make a little bit more sense. Do we have a motion to approve them?
I'll make that motion.
Do we have a second?
second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion on the street names? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. The ayes have it. Okay, old business, rezoning request number 844, property owner Celestine Singleton. And that is TMS number 129000053, 1.27 acres. Requesting a zoning change from TRM Transitional Residential Manufactured Housing District to R2 Single Family Residential District. Ms. Reinertsen.
Yes, sir. This one came before you all last month. It was deferred to allow the applicant some time to work with staff. Staff did talk with the applicant immediately after the meeting. We went through several options, and there were issues with each option. So she's hired an outside person to help work through some of those options. She's still working through that. We did receive a request for a deferral on this from the applicant, so I'm bringing that request forward at this time.
Yeah, you all should have received the request for deferral from the applicant.
I don't recall.
I think we just forwarded it to you just to make you
Okay.
aware of it, but we're letting everybody know.
What I do is I request a motion to defer to the next meeting this rezoning request.
Make that motion.
Okay, we have a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion second to defer to the next meeting. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. It is deferred. Still old business, rezoning request number 846, property owner and applicant Jacqueline A. Durr, Clubhouse Circle, St. George, request of zoning change from AR Agricultural Residential District to R1A Single Family Residential District. Ms. Reinertsen.
Yes, sir. Same as the previous item. This came before you all last month as a request to bring the property, about 92 acres, from agricultural residential zoning to R1 single family, or R1A single family zoning with half-acre minimum lot size. This item was deferred by the commission last month in order to, after listening to a number of public comments, there was a request to defer to allow further study for this. So it's coming back to you all this month.
Okay. Is the applicant present?
Good evening. I'm Ricky Waters, Bowman Consulting, 880 Island Park Drive, Charleston, South Carolina. We're representing Ms. Dorr as their civil engineer, and we actually would like to request another deferral. We just started talking to the applicant, and she's hired us to help her through this process. So we're just asking for a little more time, and more specifically, we'd like to be deferred until the February meeting in 2022.
Okay.
Happy to answer any questions.
Okay. Is that according to Hoyle?
Yeah, yes, sir.
Just wanted it for the record. Okay. Let me get a motion to defer this till the February meeting.
I move to defer till February.
Okay, do
Second.
we have a second?
Second.
Okay.
And just a comment, Mr. Chair, I think this is what's needed here is, this man's a civil engineer, I believe. And, you know, it's a complicated situation with septic tanks and drain fields. And so if anything can be done, I think it's going to take a civil engineer and some studying. So either can make it or maybe it can't make it, but at least there'll be somebody with a professional set of eyes on it. That would be good, so.
Okay. We have a motion and a second. I'm gonna go out on a limb and say I bet most people are here to address this one. But if you would, we'll hold your comments till February when we get more knowledge on what's gonna actually happen on that. Any further discussion on the motion and the second?
So the people here, can we find a representative for us?
Ma'am, if you'd come up, please.
I'm Laura Shipman. I was just asking, can we also hire an engineer also to go against this engineer? I mean, this is almost like a lot of people, constituents here.
That's up to
And I
y'all.
have pictures, I'm sure they have pictures. Just wanted to know that.
Y'all can certainly hire anybody you want to.
Okay, and we'll just have to file it for, to have a rezoning hearing ourselves? Or we'll just go whenever the civil engineer, what he says?
You wouldn't have to file a rezoning, this would be your comments.
Okay, just wanted to know, thank you. I didn't, who else would I call besides you all, right? I mean, I'll call y'all's office, the rezoning office. Okay. All
Planning.
right. I don't know how this works. I just know I have a lot of water on my property already from Whaley Durr filling it in next door. Thank you.
Come on up. We're not going to open this up wide open for comments today, since there's a lot to be done with the property before we get to that stage. But if you want to come up and make a brief comment,
Talk to Ed Hill. I live at 127 Country Club Boulevard. I've been there for 45 years. I built out there because they had 1 acre lots. There were not going to be any cracker boxes built around us, and they're not. I would like to correct a statement that I believe was made last meeting, which is it was run down. The country club, used to be a country club, is run down. It is not run down. It is a very nice, livable subdivision. I think that y'all would be amiss, and I don't like the way I said that, but I think if you put half-acre lots by homes that are on an acre lot, big, nice, pretty houses, and you put them on half-acre lots, you're going to have much smaller houses, and you're going to detract from the value of our houses.
Okay.
Now,
Mr.
I've been
Hill,
there a long time. I don't want to, if y'all approve this, I wonder if y'all are going to give us a reduction in taxes to cover our losses in value. Thank you.
Mr. Hill, I think your comments will be more appropriate in February when we find out actually what they've hired an engineer. We haven't seen anything yet. So we're going to
Have
defer
you
to
ever been to the
February.
country club?
I played golf out there. I don't know how many times I've been out
Okay,
there.
well, I worked
I
out
got
there.
many
I
friends
used to work
that
on
live
the
out
golf
there.
carts. You know, I love the neighborhood, but it's not a rundown area. The only place that's run down is where the present owner is not taking care of anything out there.
Sir, we understand that, and we're not really discussing whether something's run down or not.
All right, so you want
We're
us to be-
discussing a rezoning.
You want us to be prepared to talk again at the February meeting?
That's when it's deferred to, February.
All right, and what time is that meeting and where is it gonna be?
Well, probably in St. George.
Yeah, it'll depend on what's on the agenda, but it could be up in St. George again, yeah, for
St.
this
George.
item.
And
Since it's going to have this
fine.
issue, I prefer it to be in St. George.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Yeah.
Appreciate y'all.
Okay. All right, we have a motion and a second. Any
Call
further
for-
discussion?
Call for the question.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Like sign. It is deferred. Okay, comprehensive plan amendment under new business. Resolution to amend the future land use map with regard to TMS 11800000067. And we've still got a meeting to conduct. If I could ask for y'all to take your business, please, at least out in the hallway. Ms. Reinertsen.
Yes, sir. This is a request for a future land use amendment to the comprehensive plan. If you look at the screen, you'll see the property. It should look familiar to you. This has gone through the Planning Commission for rezoning request. This was back in the spring. You saw it once, maybe twice. It's property off of Indigo Road, requesting to go from agricultural residential to R1 single-family residential. As they've been going through the process, it has been determined the comprehensive plan does not support the R1 zoning. So right now, with the comprehensive plan designation out here is low-density, rural, and traditional neighborhood. When we were going back through the comprehensive planning process, and we were having a lot of discussions about growth, particularly in the Ridgeville, Givans area, there was discussion about what level of development should be supported in this area and what level of growth was going to need to be planned for in order to accommodate businesses or just other growth for the area. It was felt that a lot of the growth was going to be captured within East Edisto, Summers Corner, because the East Edisto does come up into this area. But they were also focusing up towards Ridgeville and along the main corridors. So you'll see that along Highway 27, Givans Road, you'll see that there's a transitional, it's transitional?
Transit-oriented.
Thank you, transit-oriented designation, which allows for higher density mix of uses. And then staff feels that immediately abutting that, the traditional, the rural and traditional designation supports more of traditional neighborhood zonings, which could be R1. So I don't know, when I circle on the map, are you able to see it on your screens? Because I know it doesn't show up on the projector.
No.
No? Okay. Well, when we look at the map, there's that large blue area, and it covers everything west of Orangeburg Road and pretty much the whole Givans, Ridgeville area that's not included in the transit-oriented or the employment uses up closer towards Ridgeville town proper. The R1, or I'm sorry, the traditional neighborhood designation is more appropriate, more supported in areas immediately outside the town of Somerville, where you have a lot of existing infrastructure. You already have the settlement patterns that are more suburban in style. Those are areas that could potentially, not always, but potentially serve R1 levels of density. Coming out into Ridgeville, Givans, it's really focused that traditional neighborhood designation along 61 Wright Road, so butting up against that existing East Edisto area. That's going to catch the traffic coming out of Summers Corner, East Edisto, channeling it up back and forth between Ridgeville. And then, of course, as you go up 27 to Ridgeville. Really, once you get west of Wright Road, Cummings Chapel, that area, there's an existing, it's rural. It's a rural development pattern. It's a rural infrastructure, and is supported by the rural designation for the comprehensive plan. So that's where we feel that is appropriate out there. We were keeping this in mind as we worked through the growth management plan, trying to focus, again, around the town of Ridgeville, where we see more immediate expansions of infrastructure. And while that's not the subject of this request here, it's just an indication of the bigger picture out in the Givans, Ridgeville area. So based on the history of the development of the comprehensive plan and the lack of infrastructure plans or upgrades for this area, and the location of that parcel, again, outside that urban growth boundary line, we're recommending denial of this amendment to the future land use map.
Okay. Commissioners? Is the applicant or applicant's rep here? Mr. Robbins?
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. Just if I could go back and recap with y'all where we've been on this process, because it's been a number of months since I stood before y'all.
Robbie, if you give us a name and address for the record.
I'm sorry. Robbie Robbins, 110 North Main. I'm here on behalf of Pierce Coffin, who is seeking to develop this property, and with us is our engineer, Jake Serrano of Live Oak Engineering, and I'm here also indirectly for the property owner, Mr. McClendon.
Can you give us a timeline of where we got to?
Yes, sir, that's I kind of jumped ahead of myself, but I wanted to recap with y'all where we've been on this project. We were in front of y'all, you remember Mr. Judy back in the spring, and at that time, there were concerns. I believe Mr. Simileski brought those up with respect to water and sewer. And so we got first reading before council after we saw y'all in the spring, and council had the same concerns and directed us to go sit down with Mr. Harper and his staff at Water and Sewer, which we did. We spent several months working with them and got a very good plan for the delivery of those services. And I think you would all agree, and I think we had this discussion back in the spring, that it'd be much better to have sewer out there than septic tanks. And what you have is about 380 acres of high land that can be developed, which would be 1 acre, one house per acre under the agricultural district, as they now call it. It was the absence of control district back in the spring. The name has been changed, nothing else has, but you get 1 house per acre with septic under that designation, which the staff is saying is appropriate. What we're proposing is a 605 house development that will be built out over 10 years, and we've got the blessing of Mr. Harper if we get this text amendment to move forward. He has told us verbally that if we get the text amendment, we can do it. We believe that having water and sewer here is much better at 605 than doing a 380 house development on septic. And so we're asking you to approve this text amendment, and I would say to you that the tribal council and the folks that live across the street practically from this development are fully in favor of what we are doing. This is going to be helpful to them. It is not going to be detrimental to this area. And we believe that what we are proposing is low-density rural. We don't really see the need for the text amendment, but when we went before council for second reading, which was last month, council said they asked Mr. Frampton on the record in the meeting, do we need a text amendment, Mr. Frampton? He said, I'm not sure that you need it, but I would advise you to get it. So that's why we're here, and we're following Mr. Frampton's lead. We're following council's lead. They've given us second reading. They said we need a text amendment. Mr. Harper says we need a text amendment. So we're asking for one, and if we get it, we believe we can deliver water and sewer to this site. And we've already got the road analysis done. There's nothing substantial that needs to be done there. We can afford that as well. We want to do it. If we get the text amendment, we think we can, and we'd ask you to support it.
Commissioners, any questions for Mr. Robbins?
I have one related to the sewer.
Yes, sir.
In the submittal, you talk about tying into existing force mains and the need for the county to have to reverse the flow in a couple of the force mains. What is the timing on all this?
All right. And I would say, first of all, Mr. Simileski, we're probably a couple of years away from building any houses on this development, but I'm going to allow Mr. Serrano to answer any sewer questions. That's way above my pay grade.
Good evening, Chairman and the planning commissioners. The study that we have conducted to serve this property.
I don't want to interrupt you, but could you give us your name and address?
Jake Serrano, 121 Misty Waters Court, Somerville.
Thank you.
We had met with Mr. Larry Harper and Jason Kaufman to go over the development. We had developed a conceptual plan for 605 lots for this property, and they showed us that Bridalwood has an existing force main, 16-inch force main, that serves a portion of that development currently, and that force main is now pumping south to an existing commercial, light industrial development. They had indicated to us that there's capacity on that line that we can tie into. In that, the question I believe that you have is whether we have to shut down or reverse any flow to be able to do that. We don't have to do any of that. We can just connect the new force main, which we are proposing, I believe, an 8-inch force main, into tie it into the existing 16-inch force main. So it appears to me that the county had planned for more flow coming into that force main, having sized it at 16-inch, and there won't be a shutdown necessary to be able to do that.
See, what you're telling me today is different than what's in your submittal.
Mm.
It's different than what's in the submittal here, the attachment that we were provided, which talks about tying into a force main and reversing flow from Ashley Ridge and routing down towards the treatment plant at Appian Way. That's what's in the submittal.
Now, what you're referring to that's being reversed at the Ashley Ridge pump station is something that Dorchester County Water and Sewer had provided to us. So we're just reiterating what they said about the Ashley Ridge pump station.
Yeah,
So-
if you're asking me to make a decision on your submission package is different than what you're telling me right now.
Sir, if I may, what I just described to you is the new force main that's coming from our site into the existing 16-inch force main. Ashley Ridge is further downstream on our site. So I didn't understand the question that you were pointing out, the reverse flow that is going to occur on Ashley Ridge pump station?
I'm talking about the documentation of your submittal.
Yes, sir.
Is not consistent with what you're just telling me right now. If I'm going to make a decision with regard to the documentation that's been provided,
Yes, sir.
that's different than what you're telling me. And I would like to see in documentation exactly what it is you're proposing, because it's not consistent.
What you are indicating, your question about the Ashley Ridge pump station, which is further down from our site, that's being reversed inflow, is what the county has informed us. That's not what I was describing earlier.
I understand that, but that's what's in your submission packet.
Yes, sir.
Documentation.
Yes, sir.
Okay, I'm making a decision on your documentation, not on what you present orally,
Yes, sir.
okay?
Yes, sir. So if you would repeat your question again, and I will answer it.
I would like the documentation to reflect what it is you're going to put into the subdivision. It's not consistent with what's in the packet right now. The documentation packet we were provided to make a decision on. There's inconsistencies in it. For instance, your hydraulic study in the information packet's based on 699 homes. Now you're saying 605, yet in your development plan, your conceptual design is for 650 homes. Is it 605, 699, or 650?
There was a process that was taken to arrive at that number 605.
I
We
understand
had,
that. What I'm asking for is a documentation package that is consistent with what you folks plan to do for development of the site. And that's not what I see before me in the package that was provided.
Wouldn't that be with a preliminary plan?
It would be with the submission that was made to the staff to make a decision and recommendation on.
Mr. Simoleski, if I could, when they were looking at all, this is a study, and as the chairman just said, we have not been able to get to an actual submittal yet to Mr. Harper, but they analyzed 699 when they were looking at the studies, which is what we gave y'all. We intend to do 605, and we do have a site plan for 605. I'm not sure what the discrepancy is with the flow question that you asked, but we're showing all of this to the water and sewer folks so that they can analyze it and give us feedback. I hope that helps.
It just appears inconsistent. That's what I'm getting at. I'm an engineer that likes to deal in facts. I like to build stuff, but I don't really know what we've got here.
Well, and all we're asking right now is a chance to get the thing rezoned so that we can build it and so that we can prepare a preliminary plan for y'all to consider that I think goes into the detail that you would like to see. The issue before y'all right now, I think, is can it be served? And it can. And if it can be served, let's do the text amendment so it can be rezoned. And then we can come back to you later with a detailed analysis and a detailed layout of exactly how it's going to work. That's I think where we are.
Okay. Is there anybody here who would like to speak for or against this? Yes, sir. Mr. Councilman.
I guess I need to, it seems like I'm doing this on a more frequent basis. I just hung up the phone from Larry Harper just to make absolutely certain of that. So my name is David Chennis. I live at 126 Bramwell, but I also serve as county councilman for Council District 2. I heard a comment made, and I've heard this made to me several times about how Mr. Harper has given his blessing. I just hung up the phone from Mr. Harper. The challenge that we put in place in council, in full council before this happened, and Mr. Harper's very strong concern relates to that portion at the extreme, well, not the extreme, but at the southern portion of Dorchester County outside of Somerville that we all call the East Edisto, because there is a development agreement there. And that development agreement saw 50 years, 40 years, 50-year development agreement with some estimate of somewhere in the neighborhood of 10,000 homes. The story that we've recently received and the concern we have from a council standpoint, from my standpoint specifically, and something that is no surprise to anyone in this room, is can we flush toilets and supply those 10,000 homes? Because now the story is that development agreement that they're allowed to build, because those quote-unquote checks have been written out of our checkbook for sewer capacity, is what happens if they accelerate that timeline and build that out in 15 years as opposed to 50 years. Mr. Harper specifically said in the meeting that we needed a hydraulic study of the downline of this portion of the sewer to make certain that we could actually flush toilets and they would get where they needed to get to. I can tell you based on a conversation, if you want to check my phone to see this, a conversation I just had outside of the chambers, is that hydraulic study has not been performed. It was my concern at the last meeting when, quite honestly, emails went out basically saying, hey, can we put this in front of the Planning Commission to get this zoning, this comp plan change, was we don't have that study to tell you that we can flush toilets. Is he asking those people that? Yes. You're going to hear that this is a 10-year build-out plan. In 10 years, it'll work. 10 years ago, the Berlin G. Myers would have been built. So my concern is Dorchester County Water and Sewer, we're being held, quite honestly, hostage over the potential change of the comp plan that's going to be, okay, now the comp plan's changed, you can do this. When we don't know that we can do it from a water and sewer standpoint. Their engineers say they can do that. Mr. Simoleski, you're an engineer. The one thing I can tell you from a standpoint of engineers, you get three of them in the same room, the one thing they'll agree on is one of them is wrong. That's a routine. That's my common theme. And am I saying don't ever change this comp plan for this? Absolutely not. Am I asking for this to be held off? Should it have been held off before now to make certain that we have the study, that we have the capacity in that lower treatment plant? I believe 100% that is what needs to be done. If we had the central, and we talked about it, the $60 to $80 million central county wastewater treatment plant, could this be done? There's no question. I don't even think we're here talking about it at that point. We have a concern about the volume. We're trying to get 8 million mg, and I'll do it without, for everybody's edification, million gallons per day effluent right now. We're trying to get to that. We believe we can do that in the plant. It doesn't come without cost. I asked the questions in the meeting, hey, you want to do this? Are you okay to delay? Can we get all this stuff done? And then all of a sudden, the emails come through that basically say, hey, we want to put this in the planning commission to get this thing moved through. This is being forced through at a speed that, and I know they won't agree with this because they've been talking about this for months. I agree. It is outside of that boundary that what we don't expect. This is a comp plan that the citizens of Dorchester County looked at, agreed to. Can we make a text amendment in certain areas to change things? Absolutely, 100%. This is not a text amendment. This is a change of use in an area. That's my concern as chairman of PDB. And I've, again, been part of this, seen it. I've had the same concerns you had because I saw 699. I was hearing 605. The owner of this property can develop this property all day long. He has the right to put homes on this. We will not, I'm sure Kiara wouldn't even question that. They have the ability to put homes on there. That is not the restriction. The restriction is, can we handle 605 homes? The question arose about water and the Natchitoches Tribe out there. We're in the process of building a $4 million water facility, water tank to be able to get water out there. That's not a question. Water's not a question. I have no issue with that. Sewer to me is a huge question. And sewer to me is a public safety issue because when you can't flush your toilet anymore, you've got a public safety issue. There's no question. Thanks, sir.
Anybody else here have any comments on this issue? Council? Come forward, please.
Thank you. My name is Robbie Maynor. I'm a project manager with the Coastal Conservation League. We're located at 131 Spring Street in Charleston. We are also share the concerns and recommendations of the planning staff that this is not, at this time, an appropriate amendment to the future land use map to accommodate a specific development. As has just been mentioned, the comp plan and future land use map are intended to guide growth for decades into the future, have tons of community feedback, and are designed thinking not just about one specific property, one specific development, but the big picture of those. And as we saw, this property is currently designated low-density rural. That fits the character of the area, and the property is completely surrounded by that settlement type on the ground and on the map here. Amending that for one higher density development would disrupt the character of that area, but also sets a precedent for more dense development on adjacent tracts beside it. It's kind of a risk that you open up there. And in addition, as has been mentioned, this planning commission recommended approval of the Ridgeville Givans growth management plan last month. And looking at that plan, that's at the finish line, but not completely adopted yet. This is outside of that urban growth boundary. And so, again, thinking about this individually would compromise the legitimacy of that plan and being able to implement it going forward. Most importantly, maybe from my perspective, though, is that this is in a very high priority region for conservation because it's so close to the Edisto River. It's less than a half mile from Givens Ferry State Park. That's a nearly 1,000 acre protected property that people come from all over the state to use. The size and type of this particular residential development would cause habitat fragmentation in that riparian corridor along the river that animals and all types of wildlife are using. There are extensive wetlands, contiguous and isolated, scattered throughout the property. And building this size of suburban development there is going to increase stormwater runoff into those wetlands, into the Edisto River, washing pollutants from that sort of heavy, kind of denser development. And I think, you know, it is worth mentioning that there are over 4,000 residential units already approved in this area that are going to be coming online over time. And the county is going to be in a really difficult position to provide the services that are going to be necessary for that, as we've just heard. And, you know, that's not just the roads or not just the sewer, also park space. There's limited park space in the area, and school impacts. I know that you might not consider school impacts, but another part to consider with the sort of bigger picture. So thank you for the opportunity.
In the past, Highway 78 has always been the focus point for growth in Dorchester County going northwest. That's still the case, but it's now industry and not residential. The residential growth is going up Highway 61. And a lot of that's fueled by District 4 schools, which they are excellent. And I absolutely agree with everything you said. So why in the world would we want to build a development on septic tanks, which they can do right now by right? So why would we want to do that? Close to the Edisto River? Why would we want to build a subdivision on septic tanks? We wouldn't. But they can do that right now. So to me, this is simply a rezoning request, because money, you're not going to type your money and spend a ton of money if you don't have the proper zoning for what you're trying to do. So it may get rezoned, and it still may not fly because they may find out that they can't do what they want to do. So I look at this simply as a rezoning request. It's not a development plan or anything like that before us. Simply a text amendment so they can rezone to R1, which gets rid of the septic tanks.
I would say it's well, maybe not much, but it's a significantly larger scale, the number of houses that they're requesting versus what you could build as of right under the agricultural and residential. That's one concern. I share that perspective of if there's only building the number of houses allotted there under AR, there could be, you know, some room to wiggle, but this is significantly higher. And this is not a rezoning request. This is a request to change the overarching blueprint of development in the entire county. So if it were that, it would, you know, come across the board as that. But this is asking to change a plan that has a decade-long scope for all growth, which is kind of, I think it is elevated to another level at that point.
Any other comments?
I'd like to comment because I've had experience in two areas geographically where an alteration of a development plan got way out in front of infrastructure, and that was Washington, D.C. suburbs and also Lake County, Illinois. And what happened was they altered the development guidelines for the county, and that resulted in some zoning changes. They bet on the come, that the sewers were going to come, and in both instances, administrative councils, county councils in one case, and a regional sewer authority in the other case, did not come up with the money. And the way that was managed, in the end, was a building moratorium, and builders got stuck. They couldn't develop their properties. And I don't want to see that happen in Dorchester County. And this is an alteration of a development plan. It really is.
Mr. Chair, I've listened to these comments, and I think Mr. Chennis makes great points. The people that want to go with sewer rather than septic tanks make great points. I look at our county, I said, I agree with the chair. This is a text amendment, correct? And this is not a development plan. This is not a preliminary plan. This is something that will allow more study to see if it even works. They've got indications from the sewer department that it might work, but it might not, as we hear. But we don't know, and it's hard for somebody to go spend the engineering money to figure out if it can work and go through with the county process if you don't have at least some kind of zoning that will help you get there. Because you can't spend that kind of money, as the chair was saying, unless you have the zoning. And I look at Dorchester County, and I look at Ridgeville, and I look at East Edisto, and I look at what's going on there, and I look at this corridor. This corridor is going to grow. If we've got it outside of the urban growth, I don't know why we did that. I really don't. If you don't put houses there, they're going to go further out, or they're going to, I think this just makes a perfect area for growth. And so, I think we're in a rough spot here, hearing that East Edisto has 10,000 sewer taps that we have to honor. Makes me think we're going to hold everybody hostage then. Then nobody can do anything if we got to honor 10,000 sewer taps and we don't think anyone can flush. So, I think we're in a rough spot there. I don't think we should ever approve something unless we have capacity. So the capacity has not yet been decided. So I think this is a text amendment, and that doesn't concern me as much as the county, I promise you, will not approve things unless they make sense. They can't, if they don't let them flush, they're not going to give them the sewer. So, just my 2 cents.
Mr. Chairman,
Go ahead.
Kiara, when is the next update to the comprehensive plan?
We'll have a 5-year update that we'll be conducting during 2023. The next major comprehensive plan will be 2028.
Okay, so we went through the exercise and got everybody's input on where they wanted to push development and where they wanted to conserve it. And clearly this one is in one of the conservation areas. And I don't see going against that. If you change this as a text amendment, you go open up a can of worms. Then you can go all over the county and do a text amendment. So I see, my opinion, you leave it alone. You don't go against that comprehensive plan that far out.
Any other comments?
And I have one comment, and I'm going to take this back to Councilman Chinnis's point. I don't think the council is stating that they don't want to do this. I think what they are asking for is the time to study it so that they can understand what complications, because they do have to honor a commitment that they have already signed on the dotted line for. So if they need some additional time to see if this will work out. I don't think that if we take this text amendment, I don't think we have to approve this today, because they need more time to find out whether this sewer will actually work, whether this will actually. I don't hear Mr. Chinnis or county council saying absolutely not. What I hear them saying is give us the time to understand whether that capacity is there or it's not there. Is that the case? Okay.
That's absolutely correct, but I think hopefully that was clear.
Okay.
I apologize if it was not.
Okay.
Any other comments? I'd entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to deny the text amendment.
I'll second.
We got a motion to second to deny the text amendment. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? I'm opposed, and Mr. Pratt is opposed. So it's 3-2.
Yes, sir.
Okay, we need to appoint a committee for officers for the next year for the Planning Commission. Would you chair the committee to do that? I'm stopping looking at you.
I was wondering. I was like, hold on.
I didn't look past you.
Quick enough.
Yes, I will
Thank you.
do whatever you'd like,
Okay.
Mr. Chairman.
And we have Planning Commission schedule. Everybody got a copy of it? Motion to approve it for this next year?
Motion to approve.
Second?
Second.
Any discussion on the dates? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. I have no report. Ms. Reinerson, do you have a report?
No, sir.
Public comment. Please come forward, sir.
Good afternoon. Thank you,
for allowing me to comment very briefly, and since this is just open public comment section, I will limit my comments and not be specific. I will be specific, though, and say thank you to each of you commissioners and you, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Carter. There are many of us in the Ponds subdivision that we truly appreciate you looking out for us. And thank you very much. And as long as I have the microphone, I wish to thank Councilman Chinnis for all that he continues to do, and my good friend, Councilman Bailey. Thank you.
Thank you. One more motion's in order.
Move to adjourn.
Vote with your feet.
Thank you, sir.
Lawyers are doing some billable